Right. Well, I should have thought about what I was going to say before I sat down, really, shouldn't I? I'm going to show you some new developments with RISC OS, the mapping software. By the way, the reason it took so long to load just then is because this machine has all of the data sets we have available on it. As you can see, a whole load of different things from Africa all the way down to the USA. If you want to purchase them on SD card, we have them on the stand. It's certainly quicker than downloading. Anyway, since we were here at the London Show last, there has been the first chargeable upgrade for RISC OS, which was version 1.36. We're now on version 1.40. And a number of new features have been added, which are quite nice. To start with, I think I will demonstrate the very, very latest feature, which we didn't even think was going to be a feature until about 3 or 4 weeks ago. It may have only been 2. Time's been flying recently. But Chris Hall got in touch with us not that long ago to say that he had got a GPS unit working with a Raspberry Pi. And so he has now produced a little application called SatNav. And if you haven't seen it yet, then make your way into the room at the very far end on the right, where Chris Hall is hanging out with Vince Hudd. And he has a couple of nice little battery-powered units with Raspberry Pi and a GPS device in, which is reading satellite signals. Now, it's not desperately interesting to watch because because this room is not moving around the country very fast. It's locked solid on the St Giles Hotel, Felton. But Chris, who's just made his way into the audience here, will be able to tell you much more about it. But this is a very exciting development because we've heard that people are trying to do things with GPS for a while with RISC OS. I know that I think a couple of other people have been looking at it before, but this is the first time it's actually come to fruition, as far as I know. So I'm going to run SatNav, and it pops up this display briefly, which, if it had got a GPS fix, would be showing you where all the satellites actually are. And when it's not actually got a GPS fix, Chris has very helpfully made it simulate wandering around a place called Midford. And you'll see here that, well, first, move this up slightly. You'll see down here, SatNav is displaying the coordinates of your current position, as it were, together with a red arrow pointing the direction that you are heading. And it is regularly transmitting this information through to RISC OS, which will move the map in accordance with where the GPS position is. Now, we could probably improve that a little bit because I think it'd be helpful for the map to move a little bit before you get to the edge of it, so you've got some sort of forward visibility of your route. But that will come in a future version, probably not too long away, I don't know. As you can see, it's turning round and heading over there. We can do a number of different things with this information. And by the way, these two applications are talking to each other via a protocol which we've been designing the last couple of weeks, which, should there be any other mapping applications that want to take advantage of it, they'd be able to support the same protocol. We've been in touch with Thomas Milius, who wrote MapView, which downloads tiles of maps from the internet and displays them. So there may be a possibility for that to be integrated into the same communication protocol. Anyway, while it's going round, we can do things. We can record the track. So if I choose to record the track, you'll then see that the signals that we're receiving are recorded on the map, so we can see the route that is being traced out. we can choose whether or not the map should, whether we should follow the point. So if we untick that, then drag the map about, we'll see that the point will go off the map, and the map does not move to display it. But if I click to follow the point again, then it'll come back on. Now, the reason we're thinking about this is that there may be in the future more than one source of live positional information, because there are other, apart from the position of your own computer via a GPS unit, it may be possible to pick up information about the position of other things moving around the world via internet connections. So for example, I know that there is quite a nice API which allows you to find out the position of all the buses in Edinburgh at this moment, which I might demonstrate later if I can remember how to do that. But at some stage you might have live bus information with these buses moving across the map, and you might not want to follow all of them. So we're building it with future extensions in mind. And we can decide that we don't want to record the track any further. The point will carry on moving, but now I can select this track and do things with it the way I normally would. So I could export it in various different formats. I could edit the description of it to say ellipse. Yes, Chris told us that he's got it circling round Midford, but of course, because longitude and latitude aren't equal on the ground, at this latitude it's more elliptical. If it was at the equator, it might be more like a circle. Yeah. Anyway, that's a new feature, and if I just click here, I can stop receiving updates, and then, although the sat-nav is still running, it won't move the pin any further. I can then choose to receive updates again, and it'll probably jump, there we are, to where it now is. So that's it's just at the very beginnings really of this development. Chris has got one particular interface working. There are others as well. One or two people have been coming up with wonderful ideas for even more devices that could be used. So I think we'll see how this develops. Anyway, I will quit that and show you some other things. So while we're here in Midford, the big new feature with version 1.40, apart from the GPS, sorry, I'm just going to just hide those, I think. So apart from the GPS enhancements, the other big new feature for this release is tracing features on the map. If you wanted to draw out a track on the map, you had, up to now, you had this laborious method where you would need to click to make your route out of lots of little straight lines, as you wish. But now we have some more options. If you click menu over the drawing tool there, you'll see there are options depending on which sort of routes you would like to follow. And so if we want to be a walker, then we can click like that. People walking can go along roads. They can also go along footpaths. And I can't follow that dashed green thing because that's something else. That's not part of the map. So here I am, wandering around. It will to some extent work out the shortest route if you jump to somewhere without sort of wandering along. If you wander along, it'll, on the whole, follow where you've gone, but just without the difficulty of having to click so much. You can click to fix a point, and then you see all those points which have been added to the route. Those are all the times that the road or the path actually changes direction. We could then say, well, actually, we're now going to be going by car from that point onwards, and carry on up here. As you can see, I'm not allowed to go along this footpath here by car. It will have to take me round by the road. I'm just interested, and let me just close that one. I'm just wanting to try something here because I wonder whether, aha, yes, if you choose train, it will actually allow us to follow this abandoned railway, which obviously is not desperately practical if you really wanted to plot a route for a train trip. But yes, I just wondered whether it would do that. Having spotted that we got an abandoned railway on the map, which came up in conversation on the Acorn news groups, I think, when Chris announced his software. The main discussion about it seemed to be about people putting pennies on the track and remembering, two RISC OS users remember doing that near Midford. Which bit of track, I don't know. But anyway, no longer can you put pennies on the track in Midford.
You can do it on tramlines.
Tramlines? Oh, right. Okay, well, there we go. Not so many cities in the UK you can do it on tramlines anymore, but there we are. I'm also going to, this is going to be very daring because I haven't actually practiced using this feature very much, but just to show that it is fairly sophisticated, this feature. If we're a pedestrian, let's go back to being a pedestrian, and we come up here, it will actually allow us to go anywhere across the Market Square in Durham, which is marked as a pedestrian area, you see. And it will then hug the main road, actually, if you go back onto the road, but it is capable of dealing with that, and will avoid, it's not perfect, but it's certainly a lot better than it was when it didn't allow you to go across this, and you thought, why on earth can't I go across that? There's been a lot of work gone into that. It makes some tasks very, very much easier than they used to be. I've been using it to plot out some maps that we're working on as part of the neighbourhood planning forum in Durham, where we're trying to identify routes that could be improved, and so just being able to trace them on OpenStreetMap like this has been very useful to be able to get that data. So those are the two main improvements since the last release, but of course since the last London show there have been a whole load of others, and I'm struggling to remember what they are. We have the CSV import features. So you may not have met this, but actually I'm going to divert myself and look at this because I'm intrigued. I think maybe this is the demo that didn't work at Wakefield. Let me just see whether it works here. When I tried demonstrating this at Wakefield, I wasn't getting a network connection, so all sorts of things I had planned didn't work. Ooh, no domain servers are configured. Oh, drat. This is the kind of problem I was having before.
That yellow you should have a network connection.
Ah. So I might have to reboot the machine to get a new network connection. No. Sorry, bear with me a moment. I'll just see whether this. Right, next minute. Oh, yeah, the laptop is deciding, it's probably because I unplugged the power from the laptop. It went and disconnected from the Wi-Fi. We'll be back in a moment. I hope it is going to come back. Right. Anyway, while that's whirring around, I'll let that whir round and round. We'll just look at the CSV import. So before RISC OS was able to import things like GPX tracks, so stuff like well, we've got this these files here from bike ride across the Pennines, recorded on a Garmin device, and you can drop them onto the map and it will plot them on. But we now have the ability to import a whole range of other sorts of data. So this one here is a CSV file showing locations of some plaques around Beeston near Nottingham. I've dropped the CSV file onto RISC OS's icon, and it has looked at the data in the file and has worked out some things about it. So it's observed that these all look like postcodes and has suggested that you might want to map that to the postcode field. Similarly, it's spotted that these look like Ordnance Survey grid references. If they're not, you can choose something else instead, something else that's compatible with the source of the data anyway. So I'm going to import these into various different fields, and this will create pins on the map. I could actually, just to demonstrate, just import a selection, or I could import all of them. And if I happen to notice any mistakes with any of the data, then I can correct it before it's loaded. So it's not altering the file, it's just altering the load. We can then import it, and it will display it on the map. Right, that's funny. Where are the others? Did I import only as a selection? Did I click the wrong thing? That wasn't very sensible, was it? Well, anyway. Import all. I'm just hoping that was... It has gone to a different scale now, and we've got a lot more pins on the map. And of course we can display these in the pins and tracks window and see the information about them. So it has loaded both of those columns that I selected into the description field for the pin, and the name of the name column went into the pin name field. And you'll notice that, of course, it's taken the grid reference and it's worked out the latitude and longitude. We can, if we wish, then go and export these again. So we can export CSV as well. So we could export the description and choose whether it's the latitude and longitude or the grid reference. Latitude and longitude, we have a number of different formats. And you can choose whether to include field names in the heading and various different formats of CSV, because of course CSV is the most widely varied format known to man, I think. Well, not quite, but certainly a lot of possibility for variation. So if we look at that here, you'll see now that we have handily converted Ordnance Survey grid references and the input data into latitudes and longitudes and the output data by going via RISC OS, which is quite nice. And then you could load this into a spreadsheet or a database or whatever you like to do with that kind of thing. Now, it looks like I now have an internet connection. The question is RISC OS any happier? Yes, it is, I think. No, it isn't. I might have to reboot to demonstrate the rest of it, which is a nuisance. What time is it? We've got 20 minutes. I think we'll reboot because some of this is worth seeing. So I'll just have to take the keyboard out because otherwise the machine won't power up properly. Right. Well, while we're waiting for the machine to reboot. I'll explain that on the stand we've got a number of different options for upgrading your map data. We have a 2 GB USB stick, which is just the British Isles data, and we have sort of range from a stick with just the USB, just the British Isles data on it, to a 32 gig card which has the whole world apart from Russia, Asia. I think that's about it really, that it doesn't have on it. The reason we're not doing the whole world yet is we still haven't put in support for non-Roman scripts properly. To do that we'd need to adopt some of the code that was written for NetSurf, Ruffle, the RISC OS Unicode font library, which is an excellent piece of code which allows you to use non-Latin fonts in your system handily. So let's go back to a sensible size. Let's just see whether this now works. So we are hoping to do that in the future. In fact, oh bother! Oh, right. That's a shame. It was working fine on the stand, and I don't know why anything is different right now. Never mind. Well, do you think so? Because it's... Oh, hang on, wait a minute. I haven't got the username and password in, have I? Chat. Probably. Never mind. What I would have shown you, never do live demos involving the internet. What else shall we show you instead? There have been quite a lot of improvements to do with GPX tracks and pins and things like this. The editing is now much better. I'm just loading in a large GPX file, which, as you'll see, it says will take a long time to load. By the way, we've redesigned the loading in since the last version. That's in order to support sat-nav, because having a window popping up every time you moved was irritating. So here's a very complicated and long GPS trace, and I must have pressed the plus button while it was loading because it failed to actually display the whole thing. I hit that on the keyboard and zoomed in. Right, so new at the Wakefield show was the feature for animating tracks. So there's an animate window, and you can actually see the profile of the journey as well. If there is altitude data in the Garmin, the data from the Garmin device or other device, other GPS devices are available, then you can see the altitude. I'm just trying to think where you. Yeah, so the blue is the speed and the green is the altitude, and you can plot the graphs against distance. You can plot them against elapsed time, depending on what you're actually more interested in, or indeed the time of the day. And when we animate, we can scale it up so it goes faster. So here is, over here is this little blob, which is moving along, showing the journey at a rate of 2 minutes for every second. So every second that passes was actually 2 minutes in real life. And you'll see this thing moving along. We can click and jump to partway through the journey. And yeah, it looks like it's going the wrong way all the time, but I think there may be a bit too much sensitivity on the readings because, of course, I think the readings are taken probably every second or so. So I'm going to stop that now, and there is another new feature which is new in this version, which is for... Oh dear, where is it? Route path. The trouble is, hang on. Perhaps it's on this menu. Sorry, this is a feature. I'm trying to demonstrate a feature that I've never ever used before. Edit route path. Ooh. Somewhere there is supposed to be a feature for simplifying tracks. Maybe it's only for simplifying. Right, hold on. Let me just try something. We're going to. Right, we'll go for a drive. Right. So I'm going to plot a route along this road using the new feature. Yeah. Okay. Now, maybe this is what it does. Yeah. Somewhere or other, oh, this is embarrassing, sorry. There is supposed to be a feature for simplifying these paths. So, perhaps if we have to go into editing mode, do we? Maybe that's it. No, this doesn't look at all promising. Well, it's somewhere in the menu. In the manual, I'm sure. Dear me. Sorry, we better stop this rather embarrassingly bad demonstration of a new feature, which I'm sure is in there because Hillary was telling me she'd added it in. She was working on this over the summer and it was going to be released earlier on, but she got distracted onto some other features. But there is definitely meant to be a feature for simplifying a track. So if you have a GPX file which has masses and masses of points every second or so, there is now a feature which can throw away a lot of those points so that you're left with a much smaller file which has less detail in it, which could obviously be helpful if you then want to edit it. Because if you take a GPS signal and have it as a track, there's so many points on it that moving them all about would be a right nuisance. So if you simplify it, you can then do editing more sensibly afterwards. The other features I was going to show off, which require the internet connection, are the finding web photos, which I was working on the stand earlier on. And that is quite a nice feature which goes and uses a website called Geograph, which will retrieve pictures within the area of the mouse pointer. So photographs within 10 kilometres of the mouse pointer, you can adjust those settings. And that can be quite a nice way of exploring the British Isles from your desk. And it works also in Germany, where there's an equivalent site. We'd like to extend it to other countries, but that involves writing a bit more software to use the HTTPS protocol, and then we'd be able to get photos from various parts of the world. I think now's the time to take questions, probably, as I've run out of things to demonstrate sensibly. So, over to you.
Is the site which shows aeroplanes in the air, does it have an API?
Now, we looked into that because you're not the only one to have expressed an interest in that. Yes, there is a website which I'm sure I could get on this laptop if it were connected, which shows the locations of aeroplanes in real time. There is also one for ships, which you can. We had a look and saw the Newcastle to the Netherlands ferry departing, and and another number of other ships around Newcastle in the North Sea. Both of those don't appear to have APIs which are available free. They are available for quite hefty sums of money. It's a bit ironic because actually both of these sites rely on quite a lot of volunteers with radio receivers that receive NMEA signals, which are emitted by planes and ships. They broadcast their current location and their description via radio, and if you have the right sort of receiver, you can pick these up. If you feed that into a computer, you can then feed it to this central system. So these central systems are partly coming from volunteer data, but unfortunately the data they produce is then locked up behind paywalls. So I fear that if we tried to develop something to work against those APIs, if we just wanted to release that as a general application, we'd be probably having to pay quite a lot of money just to use the API. Now, whether there's a way of doing it so that we could release the application, and then if you wanted to use it, you would have to pay the people who own the data, I don't know. We haven't looked into that very thoroughly yet. So there are paid-for APIs for aeroplanes and ships. If you're wanting locations of buses, it's a bit easier. As I said, the buses in Edinburgh you can get. I think London buses had an API, but I haven't been able to find it lately. There are other interesting possibilities. There is a site which in a similar way collects information from personal weather stations. But again, that requires payment to use the API if you're actually going to be using it in an application. So although there are quite a lot of interesting possibilities, it would be quite nice to be able to plot these weather stations on a map and then click and see what the readings were for the temperature and the relative humidity and the wind speed and so on. We're going to have to do a bit of investigation as to which ones are feasible, which ones can actually be developed without costing a lot of money. But there are a number of possible sources for this kind of thing. However, if you had, if you lived around here and had the right sort of radio receiver hooked up to a machine, then you could probably read quite a lot of aeroplane readings yourself, and we could then feed them into RISC OS by the same protocol that Chris is using for the GPS locations. So that would be an added challenge. Yeah.
Another thing you can do with RISC OS, sorry. Another thing you can do with RISC OSM is there's a website called public.society.org.uk. Not sure it's .org.uk or .org. And it's got every single constituency in the country.
Right.
From the smallest level to the biggest level. You know, it goes down to parish all the way upwards. It actually plots the actual boundary around
So you've got boundary data. Yeah, I've used that myself with a site called, a site which shows sort of travel data for the 2011 census, and it was able to give me a KML file of the boundary of a census enumeration district. And yes, dropping the KML file onto RISC OS and it then plots it on. So there's quite a lot of free sources of things like boundary data and yeah, all sorts of other things. So we now can import and overlay GPX, KML, and from CSV files, which gets a good range of information available on your map. Chris, next.
You say there's an API for positions of buses in Edinburgh. Is that a browser-based thing?
Well, it's a web API. So if you go to, as I was going to try and demonstrate, but I haven't got the connection. I think it was in here. Yes. You have to apply for an API key, but then it's essentially a browser-based, a web-based API. So you send a request off as though you were a web browser, and it gives you some stuff back. And what it gives you back depends on whether it thinks what you're wanting. So the type of API normally you indicate whether you're wanting HTML back, in which case it might give you one version of the information, or you might say I want XML or JSON or some computer readable format, and then you would parse that into points which you could plot on a map. And a lot of these APIs, you can stipulate what region of the country you're wanting to look at, because otherwise you'd be pulling back far too much. The Arriva buses site has, you can see the location of every Arriva bus in the country if you go to their site. I don't know whether they provide an API. There may be, yeah, I mean, some of these things that don't have APIs officially, you may be able to get them by using the same method that the web browser would use to get the information. Sorry. Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure if this is the right time and place to be asking. It's more of a sort of support question, but I noticed when this was drawing facts, it was drawing very fast. My system, which is an ARM8-6, which is a reasonably fast machine, it takes quite a lot of time to draw a succession of layers before it's all there. What am I doing wrong?
This is on what sort of machine?
ARM8-6.
An ARM8-6. Well, first of all, what size of map are you drawing? Is it an A4 or is it the sort of default size?
Default size, I think.
Yeah, I'm surprised it's slow because it's quite quick on ours. I think there are a few hidden sort of performance issues that we haven't got to the bottom of. I think maybe if you've had the software running for a number of hours and have looked at lots and lots of maps, that it can get a little bit slower.
That doesn't really explain it in my case, but it's normally fairly short sessions.
Right, okay. Yes, I think we'd probably better take this to email to investigate further. There could be a number of different things going on. It depends on the speed of your storage, and some parts of the country are very much slower than others. If you try drawing maps around London, it tends to be a lot slower than, say, out in the country, because there's just more data to manage. It depends also on whether, on what style of map you're using. If your map data is fairly out of date, then there could be a discrepancy between the style sheets that RISC OS is now supplied with and the old map data. So if you make sure your map data is reasonably up to date.
Was it done when you did a new version of it? Was it early this year, was it?
Yeah. There haven't been major changes to the style sheets for a year or so. So I think probably I better pack up so that RISC OS Open
Ruler next, yes.
Ruler next. It'll get crowded, I'm sure, and I need to get out of the way before pack up all this stuff. I will. I'll do all that. Yeah. While still is on the screen. Yeah. Thank you. Well, thank you very much, and I'm very happy to take more questions and look at things at the stand, where I might even have the internet connection working properly.